Hello, and welcome to What We Do in the Moonlight, where it's not a phase to try and get your totally normal human son into private school.
In this episode, Colin Robinson is becoming a little shit, and private school seems like the best opportunity to tame him before he kills everyone with a sword. The gang tries to impress the headmaster to try to get him into their neighbor Sean's alma mater, but things don't go as planned when they realize they haven't thought through the details of Colin's candidacy for the school. Meanwhile, Nandor is in his botched era. Hello, my name is Caitlin, and this is definitely the first time we're recording this.
Yeah, we didn't have to do it twice, not at all.
No.
Hello, my name is Umberlin, and I don't know.
Still don't know.
I don't know.
Someday we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
By episode 10, you'll be like, "Hi, I'm Umberlin, and I know."
I know, but I'm not telling you.
And you shouldn't.
Yeah, I'm gatekeeping that secret. All right, so Caitlin.
Yeah.
What were your immediate reactions to this episode?
Well, immediately, the second that Nadja said the child that crawled out of the anatomy of our dead friend Colin Robinson, I was in it because every time they repeat some sort of variation of that line to emphasize the fact that this is not Colin Robinson, this is a creature that crawled out of him, it makes me laugh every time, especially with how long it is. It's already funny enough to me that they always say his full name, Colin Robinson, so to add like an entire sentence to it just makes me laugh very hard. And then when Nadja, Laszlo, and Nandor were doing like their talking bit to the camera, and everyone, like Nandor and Nadja, were like complaining about Colin, how he never sleeps and how he's like a ruckus, and Nadja thinks that he's actually part demon, and they're just complaining about him, and Laszlo's just like, I just think he's neat.
Yeah.
And just totally like backing him up. That's when I knew immediately that this episode was going to be chaotic, and I was not disappointed.
I know, it was so funny, and it actually makes you wonder because it seems like maybe this Colin Robinson is a little different so far than our previously known Colin Robinson, our emotional vampire adult Colin Robinson. So it makes you wonder what direction they're going in because it kind of keeps coming up over and over again. Yeah. I'm super curious to know where this is going to go. Because
there's qualities about him that they mention in this episode that I'll get onto later, but also that they've hinted in the past ones where it sounds like no, that's boring and that's something that the old Colin Robinson would do, but also he's still very interesting enough. So I'm just wondering. I'm intrigued.
I am too. I am too. So for me, I think I was in it just with the very suggestion that Nandor's plastic surgery is just going to gradually get worse and worse throughout the course of the episode. Like, that was such a funny bit. Like, he started with just the under eye circles, which I didn't honestly notice at first until...
Really?
Like, I knew that there was definitely something different about him, but I wasn't sure what it was. Like, I couldn't place my finger on it until the Jinn mentions that, like, your under eyes, you know, like how you're licking your last wish. And I think that's kind of when it started to dawn on me. Well, not started, but that's when I realized what was going on. And the fact that it just gradually gets worse and worse to the point where he just can't even see is just such a funny bit. Like,
so good.
It's so good.
Oh my God. I just loved it. It was really subtle in the beginning, just like there's something going on with the eyebrows.
Yeah. Like, there's something going wrong here. His eyebrows are not moving. He doesn't have under eye circles anymore.
I watched it again this morning, and I think his eyebrows just slowly crawl like closer and closer to the top of his head,
up to his hairline. Yeah, it's so funny because like why?
So good.
Why? I love it. I adore it. Did you have like a favorite part from episode 5?
Immediately, the way that Laszlo says camera, he pronounces it camera.
Camera, yes.
So funny. Just really emphasize the way that Matt Berry will take a word and just throw it through a blender.
Yeah.
And it's good every single time. And he just continues to be the most character ever. I love him.
I love him.
Obviously, the split-second Nandormo scene that everyone will be feeding off of until the next episode when something else happens. Can't not mention that. But then, mainly, I love human neighbor Sean. He's very special to me.
Yes.
I love how he's brought in and he just goes along with everything to the point where in one scenario of Colin's family that they create, he was married to Nadja.
Mm-hmm.
And then in another, he was married to both Nadja and Laszlo. And he just goes along with it and everything. And the only thing he questions really is why Nadja is with Nandor at one point. And
yeah.
Then I was gonna say, then he questions why Nandor wants to be called Aldolfo or something, but then he just goes, yeah, okay. He just keeps going.
He's like, you're not Nandor, and he goes, yeah, you're right, I'm Aldolfo or something. And he's like, oh yeah, sure. Right.
Oh, and then he little Nadja, the ghost of Nadja, that's the doll that's possessed by Nadja's ghost, is brought in, and he goes, what the fuck is that? Like, is that a fucking talking doll?
I'm obsessed with him. He plays such a strong role in this episode, and always.
He does. I love that he was a part of their family in this episode.
Yeah.
He
really is.
He really is. What was your favorite
part? For me, it was definitely Laszlo's bucket hat, Y2K, Guy Fieri moment.
Iconic.
So good. We're already planning our Halloween costumes because they just all looked iconic in that scene.
You, me, and Vishwas, baby. It's gonna be so good.
It's gonna be really good. Can't wait you'll see the pics on our 100%. Socials. And I'd say the snap scene, which is obviously like the whole third act and second act of the episode mostly. It's just comedy genius. Because they're just able to rotate out different scenarios for the headmaster and have him forget every single one. And at one point, bring in fucking Sal Volcano and then kill him off almost immediately. It was so phenomenal. I think it's just, oh my God, one of the best episodes of television I've ever seen. It works so well. Yes.
I love that he was there for a minute.
Yes.
Not even. And then immediately killed off.
They, like most people, when they get a guest star, they like to utilize them super heavily. But in this case, they're like, no, we're going to bring him in and then we're going to bring him out the way he came. I can bring you into this world and take you out just as fast. It
was literally just enough time for you, the viewer, to process, that's Sal from Impractical Jokers. And now he's canonically dead in the What We Do in the Shadows universe.
It's so good. It's so good.
Oh my God, iconic. So, what was your favorite quote from this episode?
I think we both had multitudes because this line just has so many banger lines, like probably the most banger lines in any episode.
Which is crazy because every episode I feel like we have multiple and there's always so many good. But this one, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
It is. It's the gift that keeps on giving. There's just so many lines that I think are going to live on forever. For example, when Laszlo says, gay is in, gay is hot, I want some gay, it's going to be.
Yes.
I love that line. I expect a TikTok sound if there is not one already. It's so funny. It's so funny.
It was like the second he said it, I was like, this is the most iconic line I've ever heard in my life.
This is going to live forever in everyone's minds. Second, in the beginning of the episode, when little tiny Colin Robinson is like tootling about and like fucking around with all of Nandor's shit in his bedroom, and when he leaves and Nandor opens up his coffin and goes, fucking little guy, like so funny. I love when he says fucking guy. I wish I should like put 2 bats over it on our bingo board.
You should.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I love it when he says fucking guy, but I love like the variations of it. Like last episode we had that's my fucking guy. And this one, like you said, that's my, or fucking little guy. And then my other favorite is, I think it's the first season when the guide is there and he goes, fucking guide.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
That one's really good to me.
Yeah. It just keeps, it's a gift, it's the gift of a catchphrase that just keeps on giving.
Yeah. We're getting a lot of gifts this
a lot of gifts, yeah. And then, of course, we mentioned it earlier, Gizmo, would you shut the fuck up? We're doing a piece to the camera. Camera is I'm going to start saying that word exclusively.
100%.
It's so funny. Again, yeah, I agree. Like, everything that everything that Matthew Berry says, it just goes down like butter. Like, he just knows how to take something and make it hilarious and somehow sound like a transatlantic, like, old-timey gentleman with a British accent who's also a vampire, who's also a porn star. Like, he knows exactly what that guy would sound like, and this is him. Yeah.
You could give him, like, the most dull topic of conversation, and he will make it the most interesting thing you've ever heard in your entire life.
Yes. I adore him.
Same.
So, and then another one is when Nandor and Nadja decide to take the couch as husband and wife. In one of the first scenes in the snap scene, when they're both talking, and she starts talking about how she carried Colin to term. And Nandor goes, yes, and I am Matthew.
I am Matthew.
He had to be Matthew. He couldn't just be Nandor. He had to be Matthew. Like,
I love it. He has his whole backstory for him. He's Matthew, the groundskeeper, is my new favorite What We Do in the Shadows character.
Yeah, mine too. And my favorite part is right after he says he's Matthew, Sean's face is like, huh? Like,
yeah.
Why are you Matthew? Like, hello?
Why?
Yeah. And then another one is when Nandor, and the same scene, Nadja and Nandor can't figure out how old Colin Robinson is, and Guillermo steps in and says, he's 9. And she goes, 9! He's 9! It just kills me because I love operatically singing everything that I say. So when she did that, I was like, girl, you carry this show on your back.
She's so chaotic. I adore her.
Everything. Of course, I did not realize how many of these I had. I'm just like realizing that now, but
it's okay. I have multiple.
I know. So we have a long list. We have to make like a Watch Mojo top 10 lines from that one episode. So it was when Laszlo and Nandor ended up on the couch, and Guillermo was, I think, saying something about it, and you hear, and it's kind of hard to catch, but you hear Nandor go, jealous, like. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing.
I swear, this season is just Nandor trying to make Guillermo jealous and completely failing because Guillermo's just over it. Yes, my clown shoes are still squeaking, but I'm here. I'm telling you, long run.
I think that you're actually wearing like really good stilettos. I think that you're onto something.
Thank you.
When Laszlo says, "Are you off your tits, boy?" Love that line. And then
that's another one that's like entered my vernacular immediately.
Me too. Immediately, the moment, literally, I got home. I can't remember where I was yesterday, but I was like, I think I was talking about myself. I was like doing something for work, and I was like, am I off my tits? And I was like, yes. The answer is yes. And then, of course, when everybody's switching places during the snap scene, and somehow the headmaster ends up next to Laszlo on the couch with Nadja interviewing them instead of the headmaster. And the headmaster goes, wait, who's Colin? And Laszlo's holding his hand and goes, Colin is our son, my darling. I laughed so hard at that.
Just the fact that, like, just when they cut to a new scene and it's Nadja interviewing them, I was like, this is so good. This poor headmaster's so confused.
It's slippity slaps.
It's slippity slaps.
Do you have like at least one favorite line?
No, actually. I have no lines. First one, when Nandor first comes out and we see his face is looking a little different. Laszlo asks, have you been watching Star Trek?
Yes, emphasis on Star Trek. Yes.
Just the way that he emphasized the wrong words in the wrong order. So good. Again, Matthew Berry, icon. Laszlo really carried this episode for me because my second one is Nandor. Why don't you rub your genie? Yes. Everything he says. You mentioned "And I Am Matthew," iconic. This is like a little back and forth between Guillermo and Nandor when it's just after we find out that we see Nadja, Nandor, and Laszlo in their human attire, according to them. And Guillermo tells them, that's not going to work. Please change into your least vampire attire. And Nandor goes, that is this. And then Guillermo says, that is this? This is that. It's so stupid. Like, they're just saying the same words over and over again. I don't know if that was scripted, or I just feel like that was just them, like, going back and forth. Like, that is this? This is that.
Yeah.
That really wiggled my wagon. Nadja singing. icon. When Nadja introduces Laszlo in one of the scenarios as their groundskeeper, to which he immediately replies, "And I'm the groundskeeper, by the way." Ha!
The ha at the end gets me.
Yeah, it's just a little flair that he likes to add to it.
Ha!
In addition to the "I want some gay" line, it's the "we're very gay for each other."
Mm-hmm.
I like that we find out that Colin's favorite number is 31.
Yep.
They called impractical jokers incomprehensible jesters.
Incomprehensible jesters.
When Laszlo goes, "Shawnee!"
Yep.
And Sean goes, "Yo, Laz!" Like, they're best friends.
They're besties. They have friendship bracelets
them.
for sure.
They
Yeah.
do. They do. Nadja's impersonation of a human is, "Watch this. I love pizza so much."
Yeah.
And then Guillermo sincerely goes, "That's pretty good."
That's pretty good. Yeah.
And then finally, the last scenario we see is Laszlo and Guillermo paired up together, and Laszlo walks away and he goes, "I'm not doing this." And you hear Guillermo go, "Baby."
Baby. Yeah. The delivery.
So committed.
The delivery.
It's
The delivery.
giving.
The
It's
delivery.
giving.
Yeah.
Also, I need to say this before I forget, because I just noticed it today. In two of the scenarios, Nadja is paired up with one of a bear statue.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that the first time. And then also the very last one is two bear statues acting as the parents, with all of them behind, and they're all peeking behind it, is it working? They're so fucking stupid.
I love them so much. My dumb little tomfoolery boys.
Oh. Maybe a more iconic family.
Truly. It's funny. I think we'll talk about this more later, but it's funny because I think each individual person is really carrying their weight in this show.
Yeah.
There's it's such a strong ensemble cast. You really don't have to try. There's no one person that's kind of the outsider, the outlier in the group that you're kind of it's their scene now. You know, you don't feel like that at all. That's what makes it such a good comedy.
Strong cast. I'm definitely gonna have more things to say about that later, but they're so good.
What song would you be playing while you and your polyamorous vampire family switch places to figure out the best combination of untraditional family members to appease the headmaster?
I would put on one of Laszlo and Nadja's CDs of their original songs to show that Colin comes from a very artistic and creative family.
Yeah.
I just feel like that could have helped them a little bit.
That is very smart. That is very tactical thinking, my friend.
Thank you. I would first play Transformation, which has the iconic lyrics, Bat. Bat.
One of these days it's going to work for me. One of these days it's going to happen.
One of these days. Followed up by Kokomo, of course, because...
Oh my God.
They canonically wrote Kokomo.
Begging somebody put these up, please. The creators need to put them on Spotify, please. I'm begging.
Right? What song would you play?
I said Bird is the Word. Because I cannot believe that he brought that shit back. Every single adolescent teenage boy loved that song. I don't know if it was because of it was used in Family Guy, it was used in memes, but it just became a thing again in the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
And now it's back to evoke fear.
When I heard that, it triggered my fight or flight response.
Yeah, she actually flew away. She went bat and she flew away.
I did.
Yeah.
That's why we had to re-record it, because I left for a while.
Oui. So Caitlin, is there a character that you would bring in Practical Joker's Sal Volcano to impress?
I would bring in human neighbor I don't mess with homophobes Sean, because he continues to be the greatest neighbor and ally of all time. He just he really does it for me. He's one of those recurring characters that you don't necessarily think of often, but when he shows up you're just so happy. At least that's how I feel. I'm Sean's here. I'm so happy. I didn't realize how much I missed him until he walked in, holding Colin by like the shirt when he walked in. I was like, oh, he's here to stay. And like I said earlier, I loved how he just went along with everything that they were doing, so much so that he was a part of it and a part of the narrative of trying to get Colin into school.
Obsessed with Sean.
Yeah. Also, I noticed today, also because of I saw on Tumblr, someone pointed out that earlier in the episode, Nandor came up with a really good idea to put Colin Robinson into a performative arts school, which makes so much sense for him, but they completely ignored it because they were too focused on whatever the fuck was going on with his face.
Yes.
And then Sean walks in and it's just like, this is where I went to school, and Laszlo's like, yes, immediately yes, wherever Sean goes, he goes.
Yes. He said the two men in my life that matter, baby Colin Robinson and Sean.
Exactly. So
they will be united.
I love his impact on Laszlo's life and decisions. So
I also love that Sean, like, the example that Laszlo used of why they should send Colin Robinson to Sean's school is that Sean was tucking his shirt in as he was just standing there, like, he tucks his shirt in. Like,
I've never been so cocksure of anything in my life.
I've never been so cocksure of anything in my life. Yes.
Oh man, who would you bring in?
I said Sean as well. He is an ally for the cause, and I love him. I love the role that he plays in this show. This is something that I love about this show that I was thinking about yesterday, is like, this show doesn't change up its, I guess, its equation for good TV too much at all over the past 4 seasons, in the sense that, like, it's still kind of the same concept. Like, the vampires are all doing some bullshittery, and Guillermo's, like, caught up in it. And then you have, like, side characters. And there's just something I love about Sean and the guide explicitly, because, like, they don't play a role to the extent that they're, like, not main cast, but they're still there and they still have a part to play that's really meaningful. Yeah. Because something I think about is, like, well, what they could have done is they could have, like, changed it up so either Sean or the guide became, like, a more, like one of the main roles, which you see the guide kind of becoming more prominent, but it's definitely not to the extent that she's, like, in every episode and she has, like, you know, the extent of plot lines that, say, Guillermo does. That said, I think that's really interesting because, and it's really meaningful, because there are some shows that, like, okay, you bring in a one-off character, you're like, yeah, this character's here, and then you're like, oh, people like this character, I'm going to make them part of the main show.
Yeah, and then it gets to the point where, like, you no longer like that character anymore because the novelty wears off.
Yeah, it's kind of a weakness that I think a lot of shows adapt. Like, someone might be able to correct me on this. I think this is what they did with Chris Traeger. I'm pretty positive in Parks and Rec that Chris Traeger was supposed to be a one-off character. I don't think they were
supposed to. I don't think he and Ben Wyatt were supposed to make it past season 2, I think.
Yeah, and I am okay with that. But also, like, when I think about shows where it's like, I loved watching what Leslie and Ben were doing. I loved watching what April was up to. But then when we got to, like, Chris's scenes, I still loved them, but they also felt like after a while it got kind of like, oh yeah, like, he's a health nut, like, blah, 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 blah. So I kind of just really like that they keep everybody in their place. I know that sounds weird, but I just love the role that Sean plays in the show. I love that he's just kind of there. He's the neighbor. He's not there all the time, but he's there for, like, a couple episodes, and he usually has some batshit stuff to do. So, yeah, I love Sean. He's an ally. He doesn't fuck with homophobes. I respect him with everything I have. Was there anyone else that really took your breath away this episode?
I mean, Nadja, just because she really, just the way she, like, kind of became, like, she's almost like a drama instructor. Like, sometimes when she's in the background, just, like, kind of orchestrating each little scene that she created, and just the way that she was able to, like, keep it going. And I saw another post that was just, like, halfway through all the scenarios that they create, Guillermo suggests, why don't you just brainwash the headmaster to let Colin into school? And Nadja is basically just like, nah, we're in too deep, because she commits to the bit. She's like, we gotta keep going. Like, what is gonna work? And I just respect that so much. And she's a delight. I don't know. Yes. Like, every episode there's, like, a new thing about Nadja that, I love, because she could have easily been. And, like, we're not really seeing this often in, like, TV shows anymore, at least the shows that I watch. She could have easily been like the woman character that like has to keep the guys in line and like has to be just a little bit different or whatever. It's kind of like what they almost started to do with Caitlin Olsen's character and It's Always Sunny with Dee, and how she was gonna be like the
B word.
But like, and then I think Caitlin Olsen herself was just like, no, just write whatever you would write for a guy character and give it to me. And that's what they did, and they made her so fun. She's so funny, and she did that herself, you know.
Yes.
So I feel like it could have easily gone that way too with Nadja, but she's so good. She's
so good.
Oh, she's so funny. I love her storyline with the nightclub. I love just her dynamic with everyone in the cast. I don't know. If I loved her less,
you might talk about it more. Speaking of which, you should watch our Pride and Prejudice series, which is airing right now. It's Jane Austen August, Queens. Yeah. No, I agree. Like, there's something. Well, first, to your first point about, you know, we're in too deep, we got to continue with this. There's something so special to me about the whole plot line of the show being that these are vampires. They have magical powers beyond our understanding. They are essentially like sentient, and yet they don't really utilize those powers at all. Like they do sometimes when they need them, but for the most part, they're just like getting themselves into like batshit situations and actually fucking it up more when they use their magic. Like, there's something about that I adore, because there wouldn't be anything there if you could just like, you say, oh, he, you know, like, I think one of the marvels and also maybe not a strong suit of Twilight is, like, yeah, they can just run anywhere. Like, she's like, get on my back. He's like, hold on tight, like, my little squirrel, and, like, chase her through the damn woods.
Little spider monkey.
And she's at school. And, like, there's nothing particularly, like, off-putting about his power, and there doesn't need to be, since it's a drama and a romance and the most camp and wonderful thing I've ever seen. But like in a comedy, that obviously wouldn't work as well, like if they were just really good at what they did, and they're not, and that's what makes them fantastic. Like
I love that, like, they don't use their powers often, to the point where when Nadja starts to like hypnotize them, I'm like, oh yeah, they can do that.
Yeah, and there's also something hilarious about that like if they do use their powers, like they could actually cause horrible things to happen. Like, for example, the headmaster ending up suffering like a horrific stroke from
the fact that he dies at the end.
And the interesting thing about that is, like, he died, but Sean very clearly did not.
I was gonna bring that up. Like, they're like, oh, humans can only like go through usually about like 7 hypnosises or something, and like the headmaster had like 428 or something, and I'm like, but Sean had almost just as much.
Sean is fully a different kind of person. Like,
Sean hits different, man.
Sean hits different. Like, I love unassuming men that, like, they seem like they might be problematic, but then they say something fully based, and you're like, yeah. like sometimes you're scrolling through TikTok and you see somebody who, like, it looks like you might have gone to high school with them, like, they just got those vibes, like, I'm going to say something racist, and then they say, like, something like, I don't know, like, we need to make higher wages for workers and eat the rich, and you're like, oh, that person is based. And for some reason, that makes it better. Like, for some reason, there's something about that type of character that really eats, because you never expect them to be so damn based, like, woof, woof, bark, bark.
But when Laszlo said, he's my best friend, he's my pal, my sweet cheese, my rotten soldier, my good time boy.
My good time boy. Yeah.
He was right.
He was correct. And then to your second point about Nadja, the woman, I'm literally going to have a painting commissioned of her to go on my wall just so I can remember why I love her. But she is just exquisite. Yeah. Like, as an actress, Natasha Demetriou remains one of the most incredibly versatile women in this series, and just in general, I think in like comedic television. Right up there with, I think, Dee, because she just has a range, both figuratively and literally, but also because you're right, they could have taken her and made her like the B-word character of the show, and by that I mean like the quote-unquote like nagging wife, and instead they took her and they gave her this like amazing journey to go on, like both the career and personal journey, and they tied in little Nadja, the ghost that wants to see her fulfill her true purpose and be fulfilled in life, and she has this incredibly supportive spouse who just wants to protect her but also lets her fly. and she is phenomenal, and she's everything to me, and she's the most important person in my life, and she is the moment. And I love her. Like, I wish I could write an essay about how much I adore her as like a character. In fact, I think I will write an essay about it.
You?
Really great idea, really good point. Because there's just something so special about her character, because she doesn't have to display herself as like, ooh, I'm independent, blah, blah, blah. Like, she doesn't say it, she shows it.
Right.
Like, she is a girl boss, not unironically, without having to like say it out loud. And I adore that. Yeah.
Me too. She's everything.
Yeah. She's everything.
Do you have a character that you think is off their tits?
So like, yes and no. I didn't have one in this episode in the sense that I was like, oh, this character is really either sucks or is getting on my nerves or is just like, yeah. But actually, I kind of did in the sense that I have a character that's worrying me because I am stressed for Guillermo. For laundering money from the club. Like, I know Nadja's doing it too, but I feel like because of the self-respect or the lack of respect that Gizmo or that Nadja, and I immediately like start talking like them.
The way you immediately like disrespected him.
Yeah, the way that Nadja and Laszlo disrespect Guillermo, I feel like it's going to come back to bite him in the ass on this front. Yeah. And I knew this was going to be a thing, but I'm scared, mommy. Like, what's going to happen? Like, I just hope that doesn't. I hope that. But also, there's, and I know I've overused this word already, so don't come for me, Gen Z, but like, him using that money to provide for his mom is fucking based. Like, it's just so good. Like, thank you.
Honestly, she kind of deserves it because I think a really good moment is that a couple seasons ago we saw that she only had a mini fridge, and in this episode we see that she's getting like a full-size actual fridge and a new house and everything, and I'm just like, it's what she deserves. But yeah, I'm a little worried for Guillermo.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
For me, I have to agree that I don't have anyone in a negative way because there was not a single character that made me feel blah in this. For any reason. But in general, I do think that all of them are off their tits, and that is why I love this show.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal. I think that's the great thing is everybody is off their tits respectfully, affectionately.
Yeah.
But also, like, there's never a time when I'm like, oh, this character sucks. And I don't think there'll ever be a case. And I think that's something to key in on now, because this is usually why we have this question on here in our book series. Is like sometimes there's a character that's just really not well written.
Yeah.
And it's good to talk about that person. But I don't think that's really going to be the case with this show ever. And I maybe I say that with some bias, but I do think like this will just generally always end up in this particular series being a fun question. Yeah. Like, oh, who's really pushing it right now?
Yeah.
But it's never going to be like, which character was written like PP? Like, it's never going to be like that, which is so good.
I think like in the reverse, like there's never a character that's off their tits too much to where you're like, oh my god, you need to calm down. It's they somehow consistently find this sweet spot for all of them to be chaotic in their own way, in all very different ways to their own character, and it still be funny and not like, oh my god, we get it, these guys are kooky and they're not like other girls.
Quirky. Yeah, like that's something I can't say about a lot of other comedies. Like there were times when I think, for example, like in some of the later New Girl episodes, I would just like kind of tune out during some of the things that were going on. Or like in Parks, like I know I'm gonna sound like I hated Chris Pratt before it was cool. Like I know I'm gonna give you that energy right now, but like there were times when I would just kind of tune the fuck out during the April and Andy scenes, because I love April. I love Aubrey Plaza as an actress, but I would take Chris Pratt out with a crossbow if I had the opportunity and not feel bad about it, because like there were times when I was just like, this man is so incompetent, and like, yeah, I know it's supposed to be funny,
but it was
like
too much.
It's too much. Yeah, it's too much. And I think I might felt differently in like 7th grade, but today when I watch the show, and it might just be because of the way he is now, but like when I watch the show, I'm like, like, get out of here. Go leave. You need to leave. You need to leave. So did you have any peaks and valleys?
I specifically have 2 peaks and 1 valley.
Wow.
I know, right? Phenomenal.
That's unusual.
I know. We like to break the boundaries here on Lit by Moonlight.
Yes, by not following our normal episode script.
My first peek was that this is a bottle episode.
Yes.
I love it when you take characters, put them in a room, lock the door, and force them into a situation. I feel like this just really emphasized how strong of a cast What We Do in the Shadows has. How they're all able to just play off of each other, and there was not a single dull moment. And like, you can even argue that like, okay, yeah, but it was fast paced with all like the different snaps and everything. But like that could have gotten old so fast. But with every snap, it was like, who's gonna be paired up now? Who's gonna be what? Like, what's gonna happen? And like, were you really expecting one of the scenarios to be the corpse of Sal Vulcano from Impractical Jokers and a skunk? No.
Fuck no.
No. It's so good, and it's amazing how well casted this show is, and just how complex and how very different each character is. Like, yes, 3 of them are vampires, and one of them is their human familiar. And like, that could get old so fast, but it just continues to. And I had a point that I wanted to bring up later on when we were talking about this earlier, but it truly just shows how well they can just be together. And like, you put them in a room, and there's like, so much happens, and you're just having a fun, entertaining time, and I love them. That was not coherent, but it was. It's just so good.
No, it was. I was hanging on your every word, and I'm very serious about that. Like, it was like, I agree with you. Like, in terms of like bits, the snap scene was excellent. That was my second peak, or my first peak. It was funny. It was fast. It made sense. And like, I think it's great that you follow up this episode from last week, The Night Market, which was a huge episode.
Yeah.
And with something smaller and yet still so substantial, almost to the point where it's like, wow, like, where last episode their strength was FX, which was phenomenal.
Oh my God, so good.
This week the strength is definitely like their banter and the way they play off of each other as actors. And I think that's what I love about this season so far, is I think it has a little bit of everything that makes this show great.
Yeah.
Like, I've noticed, and something I do like about this, which I'll reiterate when it comes to our bingo board, is there haven't been a lot of substantial guest stars, and there didn't need to be.
You don't need
because
it, no.
It carries itself. Like, I even thought that during one of my favorite episodes from season 1. It's episode 7, which is when they meet the Vampire Council, and you have Jermaine and Tyka and Tilda Swinton and Phoebe Herman and like Wesley Snipes and all these amazing guest stars who show up for this episode, and that's great, and I love it. But at the end of the day, what's funny is they don't need to be there. Like, this show, like, these characters, they play so well off of themselves and each other that you don't need that. Right. And I think I completely agree with you, because like, I wish I'd come up with examples of good Odd Bottle episodes, but I think this is okay. The one of It's Always Sunny, when the gang gets trapped in it's like in a cruise ship somewhere. Yeah. Very funny. Also hard to do, because there are other times when you put scenarios you put people in an episode together and it doesn't really work. But here it just worked so well. The writing was great. It was so strong. I felt fully engaged the whole time. It wrapped up quickly. It wrapped up in a way that made sense. It was phenomenal.
It's so good. And I feel like to the point with guest stars, sometimes those can almost be distracting. Because for me, sometimes it takes me out of the show, where I'm just like, oh, this is so-and-so. But it still they still make it work. Like, they had Mark Hamill in an episode. And and it still works. But you don't need to rely on who's going to be here this week, you know?
Right.
So
when you think about that episode in particular, it's great, because that was a Jackie Daytona episode, and the highlight of that episode, when you think about it, was actually Matthew Berry. And like, it was like Mark Hamill, he played like a minor role, and I
forget that was even that episode.
Yeah, in it that much, but it didn't really take away from everything, which makes it such a great episode. Yeah. What was your second peak?
My second peak was fucking Nadja.
Yes.
She's just so good. I've already talked about her so much already, but I just love that she really committed to every single scenario that she went on, like the drama director that she could potentially be in these moments. Yes. I love it when she just takes charge. It's just like, this is what we're doing. You're going to sit here. This is who you're going to be. This is what we're going to do. and she just really put everything into it. And again, like when she when she goes 9, he's 9. Like, it's just stupid shit like that. Like she, as someone who does stupid shit like that all the time, it's just nice to see that. Like, like I don't want to say like I feel seen, but like I do. Like I'm just like, oh look, she's just like me for real. Like
like there's a sense from her. Yeah, I do that. Yeah. There's a sense from her that you would be like, she'd be like in your friend group. Like, she's someone you'd want to be friends with. And that's what makes her special. Like, something I always loved about Leslie Knope in the Parks and Rec episodes was like, she was kind of a weirdo. Like, you go to her house and it's like, it's a complete hoarding situation. Yeah. And I related to that so much as somebody who grew up like that. And also, like, because, like, like, life is messy, and she was a mess, and she was a weirdo. And I just love girls who are weirdos on television also. Same. Like, girls on television should be weird. If they're not weird, if they're perfect and they explicitly appeal to the male gaze, then they're not my friends. But if they're little weirdos, they are my friends.
Yeah, and there's a difference between, like, she's weird and she's quirky.
There is. I agree. Because, like, you know, as much as I love, for example, like Zooey Deschanel's character in New Girl, I think it's fair to say that like there are times when she's like, "Uh-oh," you know, and you're like,
it's like,
Zoe.
Okay, you get it.
Would you would totally, and I don't know if men ruined that for me because the men were like, "She's so cute and quirky," you know. Yeah. Like I asked Vishwas a couple like months ago. He's gonna yell at me for this. No, he's not. He's just gonna be embarrassed. Sorry, Vishwas. I love you. I asked Vishwas the other day like who his crush was, and he said, "Oh, growing up, it was Zooey Deschanel," and I just rolled my eyes because I was like, "Of course it was. You love your quirky little lady." Yeah. Yeah. I know he listens to this, so hi.
Hi, Vishwas.
Sorry to take you out like that on live television. Know that I love you and I adore you, and I'm glad that you're with me and not Zooey Deschanel. Maybe I'm just jealous of her because she has cool bangs.
Did you have a second peek? Did we do that?
Sure didn't. No. Yeah, I did. I just that Guillermo's laundering money. He's my girl boss. He's my toxic king. I want him to have everything. I want his mom to have everything. I love that his favorite color that he wears a lot seems to be like maroon. I love his new car. I just love everything about him. I'm happy for him. I'm happy that Nadja's also laundering money. I just hope that they continue to do that. I'm all for the Wraiths unionizing. I'm pro worker rights, but they are also sentient, essentially cannibalistic, ancient demon beings. So I don't know how much they need human currency, but yeah, I'm happy for them that that's where the money's going.
Retweet.
Did you have any valleys for this episode?
My only valley for this episode is I just miss Colin Robinson.
My man.
I so am intrigued and am loving this whole baby Colin Robinson storyline and seeing him grow up and seeing like these origins of like, is this how energy vampires start out? Like, is it clean slate?
Yeah.
Is he going to
what it is?
Turn into the Colin Robinson we know and love? Is he completely different? We don't know. But we don't know yet. But I really miss him. I miss when he would walk into the room, say some dumb shit, and then leave. Like, I need that back in my life. So I'm really, now that we're moving into the second half of this season, which holy crap, I can't believe we're already halfway through.
Chills.
Time is a construct. I'm wondering if we are going to get older Colin Robinson soon.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Who do you think he is? Do you think he's the same? Do you think he's different now?
I still think I think he's the same person. Although I think that he will have a little bit different qualities, a little bit of sparkle, a little spice with him. I think that at the core, he will always be like we all have like these qualities that like we have about ourselves, and like no matter what happens in our lives, like we will always be that person. And I think that that is who Colin is. Like I think he will always kind of have like these basic interests. Like in this episode, he has a favorite number, it's 31, and his favorite color is brown. Like those are things that maybe someone who you would consider boring would have. So I feel
That's
like
an emotional vampire, yeah, or an energy vampire, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that he's going to keep those qualities and like be that person, but just this time with a little flair. And like even so, honestly, actually now that I think about it, like I don't think he was ever boring, you know?
No.
He was never boring. He just has these special interests and just talks about it to people who don't give a shit. And like as someone
and lives off of their energy, yeah.
As someone with special interests who sometimes growing up talked to people who did not give a shit, I relate. You know?
Snaps, yeah.
It's very interesting to me to see what he's into now, and will he take his love of musical theater with him? Will he?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm excited.
My thing is, I want to say he already did love musical theater, because I'm pretty much convinced there was an episode where he went to see like a show in Buffalo or something, or in like Albany.
He wanted. There's an episode where he wanted to go to Buffalo, and then when they went to the casino, he loved that commercial. Yeah. Roll the dice.
Yep. I think we're getting casual elements of him back, and he'll be fully restored by the end of the season.
Yeah.
But I agree that maybe there'll be some catch there, because why not just be like, my question I think for the writers is like, why do this? And I definitely think it's to give you a sense of like, because there was a question at the beginning, right, of like, where do emotional vampires come from?
Right.
Why doesn't Colin really know or remember? And now you get to see him live through that. Yeah. And you get to see how he became who he is today. And I do get the sense that it's going to be like, it doesn't matter how much you try to stimulate this guy. Maybe it's his special interests that made him this way all along.
Yeah.
Which is nothing wrong with the way he is. I agree that I don't think he's boring either. But in the sense that, like, you know, he's just a guy with special interests. Like, he's just some guy, and that's who he's going to ultimately become again, I think. And I think, like, maybe that's the message is, like, yeah, like, he has all these special interests, but that's because he had loving people in his life that exposed him to his special interests.
Oh.
Yeah, which kind of hardy, yeah. Might be a little too heavy for this episode, but we'll see.
Crying about Colin Robinson hours.
Yeah, I am, though. I might have to write an essay about him, too.
Tears in my eyes.
High key, though. Like, I don't know. I feel like that's where I'm going with this, because I just think the sense that Laszlo treats him, because it could have been like, oh, the baby. But instead it's like Laszlo treats him with, and Nadja, and everybody genuinely treats him with such love, and like seems to have his best interest at heart more so than ever before when he was an adult.
Yeah.
And I just get this sense that maybe that's what makes you, you know, the way you are. The alternative thing I keep thinking is, like, what if they've been, because remember when he said, he talks about his father a little bit, he talks about his mother as well, and he clearly canonically has a grandmother, but part of me is like, wouldn't it be funny if they'd all just been through this before and they don't remember it? Like, his mother and father were actually him, Laszlo and Nadja, like a long, long time ago.
That would be so funny.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. That would be really, oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the direction I'm going in.
I like that.
Going back to negative things, I think for me, my valley in this episode is that this is maybe the last let's impress the headmaster and send the kids to private school episode of any show that I will ever be able to accept again. Like, the thing is, I feel like I have this list of like tropes that I just can't stand to see anymore, since they've been done so much in television that whenever I see them now, I want to eat off my fingers. And this is just another one of those scenarios. However, they made it their own such that it didn't really bother me. Like, I still am fully feeling like this is the best episode of the season. But that said, and you know, you can take any old trope and just put vampires in it and make it anew. But with that in mind, I think if I do see this trope again anywhere else, yeah, fingers gone.
Yeah.
Hands fingerless.
It's on site. All right. So, all of that being said, it's time to see how we're doing with our What We Do in the Shadows bingo.
Wee, 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 wee. Bingo.
Shout out again to By Hammerspace on Twitter for making this template.
Thanks, By Hammerspace.
Thank you. All
Keep
right.
being Hammerspace and bye.
Yes, all of the above. How we doing?
So this week I said we have one. I originally said two. We'll talk about that in a moment. But the gang tries to send Colin Robinson to private school. I think we all knew this was coming just when the episode names were released. That's where we knew it was going, you know. So that was a good one. And then I said a gay sex originally, but I think I agree that maybe we should hold off until some gay sex actually happens instead of we just, talk about it.
Yeah.
I was hoping at the end of that episode that maybe like when, at the very end, the scene that I forgot that we should talk about, but I love when Nandor essentially says, "No sucking off tonight," like to Laszlo.
Because Laszlo said he needs to stop getting plastic surgery when Nandor's face is finally back to normal.
Yeah. And Laszlo responds is like, oh, yeah.
Oh.
I love that. I was hoping that would end with like one of them running back to each other, but it didn't. So, which is fine. Though I know that's probably what happened anyway, but we didn't get to see it, so I can't count that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I feel like that's fair that we wait until that actually happens.
Yes. But otherwise, bingo board. There are a couple places we can get a bingo. We really need a Marvel movie guest star, unfortunately.
It could be anyone who's ever been in a Marvel movie ever.
Could be an extra.
I looked at the Headmaster's IMDb. It was not him. I looked at Human Avershawn's IMDb. Can't be him.
Yeah. It's gotta be. It's gotta, yeah. It could.
It's rough, dude.
Please.
And it has to be like in What We Do in the Shadows. Like, it has to be a character who is truly a part of the episode.
Yeah.
Not just like...
It could literally be anyone at this point. It could literally be anyone. Yeah. Anybody. I'm begging.
Please. We're begging.
I'm literally
we just want
begging.
a bingo.
I am fucking begging you. So, with that in mind, on a scale of 1 to 5 sports that baby Colin Robinson is enrolled in, how do you rate this episode?
I see. I'm going back and forth because originally I said 4 out of 5, right? Because I laughed a lot this episode, but I definitely laughed way harder during the night market episode. That episode is very special to me. It's so good.
Yeah,
it's so good. But this is a really good episode. This is so hard.
Yeah. I think since that was your favorite episode, you should keep it as your favorite episode.
Yeah, I will bump it up to 4.5 out of 5. Like I said, I laughed a lot, but just not as hard as last week. Last week, my tonsillitis came back, so until this show takes away my voice completely, 4.5 out of 5.
Until there's just one person on this podcast.
Until we have to revert to a video podcast, because I have to do sign language. I
was gonna say until Caitlin has to do ASL, which thank goodness she can.
Yeah, thank God.
We'll be in a good place. Yeah, I think I've heard that a lot online. So I would say I think that both episodes are actually 2 of the strongest episodes this show's ever had.
Yeah.
And it's hard to choose because I think what makes them strong is different things. Like
exactly.
For that last episode, as I said before, and I'll say it again, the FX were just remarkable. The puppeteering, like they brought out the aspects of the lore of What We Do in the Shadows that make it special. This episode, I think this was my favorite episode so far because of how much I laughed, but I thought that the line delivery was just truly amazing in this episode.
So good.
So I gave it a 5 out of 5, and I've heard other people say that too, but I do think that both episodes are probably the 2 strongest that I've seen so far.
And I'm just so excited because if these last 2 episodes have been so like this good, like we have 5 more to go.
We have 5 more.
Like what's gonna happen? I don't know. I don't know. I'm so excited. And I'm someone I don't read episode titles. I mean, I do know that the next episode is the wedding. I do know that, but I don't read episode titles. I don't watch trailers for episodes. So I am completely have zero information truly about what's all gonna happen. So I'm really excited.
And I know where things are going, and I'm having a great time.
Yeah, this show, man, so good.
It's excellent.
Excellent. Well, thank you for listening to What We Do in the Moonlight. Tune in next week when we find out if treachery is afoot for Nandor and Marwa's wedding.
Spoiler alert. It is.
Bum, bum, bum.